JD Vance. What is his job, by the way? Okay, I don't know what it is. But he has jobs to give, and he's hired Tucker Carlson's son to his press office. That's a plum job. Taxpayer paid, I'm sure. Before we go into details of that, Tucker's thoughts on DEI.
Affirmative action and its new version, DEI, are of course by definition forms of anti-white racism. White men are at a structural disadvantage in getting jobs and getting contracts and getting into schools. There's kind of no pretending it's anything but what it seems to be. As to the question of DEI, the whole thing is Jim Crow. I mean, it's grotesque. The idea that certain people on the basis of immutable characteristics get certain privileges and other people are hurt on the basis of their immutable characteristics, like that's totally incompatible with America. It's got to be a colorblind meritocracy or it can't keep going because it's a pluralistic society. There's no majority of anything that has, anything in common. So to keep the country together, it has to be based on merit.
I'm dumber for having heard that. In fact, I vegged out in a minute. It wasn't that long of a soundbite, but I thought if I only had a burlap bag to place over his head, that would be helpful to society. Do you see what he did there? If you just took a chunk of the statement there from Tucker Carlson, you could explain why Black and brown people are mistreated. How dare he even talk about Jim Crow? And how would anybody on his side of the aisle know about Jim Crow? They're not allowed to learn about it. Buckley Carlson, is that really this kid's name? And I don't mean to disparage it, but this is like if somebody was writing this, okay? Huck Finn, a spinoff. Buckley Carlson, former Capitol Hill aide and the son of conservative media personality Tucker Carlson, set to join Vice President JD Vance's press office, sources telling ABC News. He's set to serve at Vance's deputy press secretary, sources say. It's a big job. It's a really big job. The hire is sure to revive calls of nepotism that were whispered in conservative circles in 2022 when Buckley, a 2019 University of Virginia graduate, was the communications director for then Representative Jim Banks. His most recent position was serving as the Indiana Republicans' deputy chief of staff. Buckley's new gig. Can you put the picture up? Because Buckley's hair and Tucker's, and I understand they're kin, but it's just so interesting to me how their hair is, you know what I mean? It's just, boy, they're kin, aren't they? Anyway, Buckley's new gig will keep him in Republican politics, despite records listing him as a registered Democrat since 2015. Makes me wonder, are you just an opportunist? Daily Beast has the reporting here. Reports emerged in 2022 that alleged Carlson and his wife Susan tried to call on Hunter Biden to help get Buckley accepted into Georgetown when he was a senior in high school. I realize you don't really know Buckley, Susie Carlson wrote via email in 2014 to Biden, a Georgetown graduate. Maybe you could meet or speak to him and he could send you a very brief resume with his interests and grades attached, Carlson wrote. That in this alleged email exposed during Hunter's email scandal as Russian disinformation in a call with the Washington Post. I don't know if Susie wrote the email or not, but I wouldn't put it past her. I went to Georgetown and I'm not that petty. I was going to race and get on with the other alumni and say, please, please vet everyone deeply. Everyone. Carlson reportedly raged behind the scenes that same year after a Daily Beast report quoted a GOP strategist suggesting Buckley was a nepotism hire by Banks because he dies to be liked by the establishment. Conservatives, including Donald Trump Jr., quickly came to Buckley's defense after the report asserted he was plenty qualified to hold the position that he got. Okay, but did he beat everybody else out? Was it fair? You know the answer. Brian Tyler Cohen reacted on X. Republicans, affirmative action is bad. DEI is bad. We need a meritocracy. Also Republicans, welcome to Tucker Carlson's son, Buckley, the newest member of JD Vance's staff. They're never going to own up to this hypocrisy. They're never going to, yes. They're just going to do this word salad. I don't know if anybody knows this about me, but I enjoy arguing and I love it. Okay. I could have been a great trial attorney, I think. I just didn't want to look up all the case law, but I'd argue. They just will never, this is so plain. And why people who are everyday Americans trying to make it, shopping at Walmart, if that's your jam. I'm not going to shop at Target anymore. That's just me. You do what you want. And Walmart's not much. I'm not suggesting that, I'm just saying that it reminded me that I'm going to have a big fight with my daughter about that. We're not going to Target until we decide on some things and they do better. But what do you make of this? Buckley, maybe he's qualified, but so are a lot of other people. Should Buckley be thrown into this when he's just the kid of a real smarmy guy?
I mean, I'm not looking forward to seeing what this kid has to say, especially if that's who raised him. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, I guess. But, he already has the track record of, he seems to be tracking along the same lines of his dad. But, nepotism in general, it feels like one of those things that are like a natural product, not just of capitalism, but of any society. If someone's doing well in one industry, why wouldn't they pass it all down to their children? And then why wouldn't a parent use their industry, like insider information and their industry connections to promote their children and give their kids a leg up, whether it's very intentional or not? Like if a kid is just used to growing up around his dad's friends, then it's understandable that they'd be like, oh, I need someone for this. Why don't you apply for this, whatever. It happens in all kinds of industries. Most of life, I would say, like your career, your marriage, et cetera, it's just about proximity to people, right? Proximity to power, to opportunity. The person that you marry is going to be whoever is in front of you and isn't the worst, right? So much of life is about having access, gaining access to circles and communities. These Nepo babies, they don't have to fight for that access. They inherit that access, which is so highly coveted by so many others and so difficult to attain without being born into it. And here in the US, we're a younger country, so maybe it's now just a time when we're starting to see all these Nepo babies reap the benefits of their wealthy and very influential parents. Over in Europe, they have legacies, just generations of people of wealth that they're inheriting, however that wealth was attained in the first place. Maybe here in the US, we're just more aware of these Nepo babies now because of social media and because of the media in general. In Hollywood, Nepo babies are a problem now more than they really have ever been. But I'll tell you, it's been a problem for a long, long, long time over in Bollywood. So I feel like Hollywood is just catching up now. This was an inevitability. Yeah. And the thing with Nepo babies isn't the fact that they exist. It's about it's about the hypocrisy that you were referencing earlier. It's not even about whether or not it's ethical. It's about the hypocrisy of this entire conversation. They want to say that this needs to be a meritocracy, that people who are undeserving of roles shouldn't be there. They're saying no DEI because those are DEI hires and you're only hiring them because you want to fill some kind of quota, and that's unethical. Right. But at the same breath, they'll say, whatever, just give my kid this job. But then they'll defend it and say, well, he deserves it. He is the best out of everyone else who's out there. How could you possibly know? There's so much talent and intellect and drive out there in the world, but they just don't have that access that you really need before anyone can even begin to take you seriously. And whatever job you're in, there is someone out there who can and will do your job better than you, right? It's just a matter of they didn't have access. They didn't know the right people at the right time. They weren't in the same place at the same time. But don't pretend that that isn't the case. Don't act like, yes, I'm good at my job, or I try my best at my job and I work to be better at my job. But at the same time, there is someone else who can do this exact same job. They have this need to just feel special about everything. Like, I'm so much better than everyone else out there. It's just illogical. It's not real. It's just a thing that they have to believe about themselves.
Now I know that you'd be my favorite sister. Okay, because this is, hey, what you just said. I had to check my colleagues in the newsroom one day.
Yeah.
Especially the blonde anchor, the time she did the noon, you'll never know who it is. And I'm sorry, but she was horrible at that job. Very icy. They called her the Ice Princess.
Oh, that's not a good nickname.
But they put her in the chair because I remember the news director at the time when he wasn't drinking. He whispered to me, well, she looks the part. We need a beauty queen. We need a blonde. That's how he was casting these people. Okay?
Yeah. Do you remember how did Tucker Carlson get his job? He was just there. Right
time, right place.
Right. You just put him on.
Right.
And now we have to deal with his son. So
somebody left the door open and he ended up in there, right? And now we're stuck with this Tucker guy and all of his nonsense, particularly since Rush Limbaugh passed on. And he's really sucked up a lot of oxygen. But I remember saying to the blonde girl who stood up in a DEI, someone said something, we had a sensitivity meeting. And I just listened as she said, well, I just think it should be the best people and the best candidates and none of this, diversity and this, that. She actually said this nonsense. And I waited. And the HR lady, sensing that I had something on the tip of my tongue, said, Sharon, is this something you want to say? And I said, yes. No one in here knows if they were the best person for the job, whether it's an agent, who you know, what you were exposed to. So let's knock it off. Right now, we're all place fillers. And I can accept that. I try. I think I'm decent at my job, but let's not get it twisted. You don't know if you're the best candidate for the job when other people weren't even considered. Other people didn't even know about it. Other people weren't in the room. Are you kidding me? So you hit the nail on the head. I wish Buckley well for that alone, the kid. I mean, really? I wish him well because his parents named him Buckley, and that's not okay. And you're right. This has happened throughout the media. Jenna Bush, I like her. She's on, the third hour today or something. You have Luke Russer. I was a big fan of his father, okay? You have, what's his face, who asks all the rude questions at the White House. I'm sure Miss Pierre is glad she's no longer the spokesperson because Peter Doocy gets on everyone's nerves. He wasn't qualified to do, he's still not, but he got the job anyway. And you're sitting up here talking about somebody else who doesn't deserve it. Okay, tuck. So yeah, Buckley's now the deputy press secretary for JD Vance. Good luck.